Hello, hello, and welcome everyone to Grow Wealthy Grooming. My name is Riverly, and I am the founder of the Savvy Groomer, where I teach you guys to go from being burnt out, broken to healthy, wealthy, happy, building a grooming business on your terms. So, in today's topic, we're going to be talking about 5 reasons why I don't suggest being a cash-only business. So, let's go ahead and hop right into this. So, number 1, cash makes you a target for the IRS. The balanced money states that cash businesses are more likely to be audited by the IRS and have a particular problem when auditing because it's difficult to verify income receiving in cash, right? So honestly, think about whether there are times when you haven't deposited all of that cash and that you received in a day or a week. It is much harder for you to qualify for things like buying loans or to buy a house, especially as things are starting to tighten up, right? Especially as interest rates are getting higher and you have to prove more money to qualify for that, right? The IRS is, if you're not reporting the cash to the IRS, or if they perceive that you're not reporting all of that cash to the IRS, right? That makes it a lot more difficult. And the reason it's so hard to qualify for things like loans is because it's hard to prove where that cash was received as income, right? It's so difficult when you're saying, hey, I make all of this money and it's all cash. How do they know that you're not a money laundering operation? Now, I understand we think, the mafia is not going to pick a grooming salon in order to be the place that they launder money, but the IRS looks at us no differently than a laundromat or a nail salon. They just see us as a business. And when you are a cash only business, you really are putting a target on your back for the IRS. So if you went to go purchase a car, for instance, ways that you could prove cash income is things like invoices, tax statements, letter from those who pay you, duplicate receipt ledger, so you could give them a copy from like every single customer. Now, for some of you guys, you're like, oh, well, I'll just give them a copy of my grooming software where it says I check in and out all of these dogs. Okay, but again, that is so easy to falsify those if you were money laundering or if you were receiving cash from another illegal business or otherwise and putting that money into that business. And again, I see this all the time when I see groomers that are like, oh yeah, like I'll just start reporting my cash, right? And they go from making like $30,000 a year to making $120,000 a year really quickly. So because of that, it's one of the main reasons that the IRS is like, hey, if you do this, we're on notice that there's something weird going on here. So do you see how many different paper trails you may need opposed to just accepting debit or credit cards? Number 2, cash only means you'll have less tips statistically. So I know it's really easy to imagine a world where people just hand you over these large bills, but the truth is that most people, especially getting money out of the ATM, are getting these bills in 20s. So they're not generally getting 50s or hundreds. And while our grooming is going up to, at least $75 or $100, right? So they're probably going to be pulling out on average just $20 more. So if you're in a place like me, which has sales tax in your grooming, if they pull out, for instance, $120 from the ATM in cash, that means that $7, we have 7% sales tax, is going to go towards the groom. So instead of getting a $20 groom, I'm now going to get a $13 tip, right? I'm sorry, $7 tip. Instead of getting a $20 tip, I'm going to get a $13 tip because again, they're not going to be able to go and grab the cash. Also, if the groom is more expensive than they expect, they can't go back and get more cash unless it is, again, above and beyond that. And because, it's just more inconvenient, okay? The other thing is when you have an app like if you have a screen up front or if you are creating a script for the person up front, or if you have a script for, the pickup text, you can always give them suggested tip amounts. I love this when you are saying like, if you're sending a text to let them know to pick up the dog, like, hey, Fluffy's going to be ready at X time. Please let us know if you would like to add any gratuity. Common gratuity is you can say, X or X, right? And if you have a screen, you guys make those gratuity amounts higher. I prefer to have things at like 18, 20, or 25%. With a custom. I don't suggest doing anything as low as 15%, but again, they can always make a custom one lower, right? But having that tip screen allows you to be like, yeah, of course I want to give my groomer a tip, right? Or it answers the question a lot of people don't know, like, can I tip my groomer? Is it normal to tip my groomer, right? Having just a tip jar where you take cash tips, you're statistically less likely to get a higher tip, right? Because 20% of $100 is $20. So people would be like, oh yeah, that makes sense. I'll just do that. But again, if they have that cash and they have a finite amount of cash, right? People are more likely to give $5 or $10 if they have it in their wallet than handing over a $20 bill. Okay. So, and again, that's another reason why people are generally more generous with tips with a debit or credit card. And one of the main reasons for that is actually number 3. Cash hits the pain center in the brain when you spend it. So when you charge more or you're going up in prices, clients feel cash way more than they do with a debit card. And this is actually a tip that we personally use in Personal Finance on a Leash, our 12-week course where we teach you guys how to learn how to use your money, right? And that's so important because what happens in that is we teach you guys to use the envelope system. And when you're using the envelope system, when you go to buy something, you're using that cash. When you have a finite amount of cash and you hand someone that money, it actually hits the pain center. It doesn't when you just swipe magic money, okay? It doesn't. So if you have to hand over $100 to fill your gas tank, that hurts way more than doing your debit card. When you go to Target and you spend $200, it doesn't feel like real money. But if you had, 8 crisp $20 bills and you have to hand that money over, it is significantly more painful, okay? And again, think about when you guys spend money online. How many of you guys have been like, oh my God, I can't believe I spent all that money after you're just like doing all these Amazon Prime deals, right? These one-click deals. That's why Amazon does it. If Amazon could save thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars on what's called cash on delivery, they would. And in fact, that was what a lot of companies did for a long time. And what they realized is that you're actually more likely to spend more money if you're not hitting those pain centers in the brain. Okay. So when you have a price increase and you're cash only, people are going to feel it more. They're going to feel it more in that pain center. Okay. And again, people that are feeling things in their pain center are, again, less likely to tip, and they are more likely to feel a little resentful, right? Again, if you go to a restaurant, I want you guys to try this. Go to a restaurant that you really love, right? And every time you buy an appetizer or you're going to buy food, take that money and just put the money down. Start counting the money, okay? We also do this when we talk about our tip challenge, right? And when you save all that money, it's harder to give it away. If I had handed you $10,000 or $30,000 in your hands and I said, okay, go buy your car, most of us might buy a cheaper car, right? And keep the cash. However, when we're doing a loan, right, or something that doesn't seem like it's real, like your debit credit card, you're going to spend more. So we want our clients to spend more. We want them to not feel like it's a big deal. Okay. So again, imagine you're holding all of the money you pay in tax and you had to physically hand that to your tax collector, or you had to pay all that restaurant's checks in cash. You had to still fork the money over. Okay. Again, the reason the Doberman was created, the Doberman Pinscher, was because the tax man needed protection because people would be mad when the tax collector came, and robbery. But that's a whole nother conversation. Right? So try that out on your own, see how you feel. And for the most of us, it doesn't feel as good. and you're less likely to tip your waitress generously because, again, when you hand over that money, it actually makes you more frugal. So consider that, okay? Number 4, it's harder to charge for no call, no shows. So when you think about this, it's going to be so hard to charge for no call, no shows, because if you're relying on cash only, you won't have people's cards on files and you can't automatically charge their card. Okay. You're going to have to hope that people will either come down to your shop and pay for that no call, no show, or they'll pay for it when they come to their next appointment, which is a lot more less likely, right? Think about it this way. If I, no call, no show because I'm being rude to you or I'm not respecting your time, right? What can happen is that, and you're like, okay, like, please come down with cash and pay for your appointment anyway. I'm going to be like, yeah, okay, I'm going to go do that, right? That's totally different. On the flip side, what can happen here is that you can always just charge the card, right? And that's what I suggest. When someone no call, no shows, what I actually suggest is that you go ahead, charge the card. My policy that I suggest all the time is 48 hours, give them 50%. So if it's 45 to 24 hours, it is 50% of the groom, and less than 24 hours, it is 100% of the groom. So if it is 100% of the groom, I suggest you just go ahead and charge the card on file, right? And then message them and be like, it's so sorry to hear that you did not come. We highly suggest that you do come. We've already charged the card and we look forward to seeing your next groom, right? And now I have the power, right? Now I have the price of the groom already. I already have that money in the bank and I didn't lose anything. And the client needs to understand that they can't just no call, no show. I think there's nothing more rude than not even giving me 10 minutes notice. Like, I just can't stand it. And even then, if my time is money. If you don't show up to your appointment, I don't make money. That's not fair. I held that spot for you and I didn't give it to other people. Okay. And so let's move on to our last reason. Number 5, people view you as less professional. Now, part of this is the feeling around money laundering, the feeling around these businesses, right? That only accept cash. Think about the businesses that only accept cash. They're generally these very small mom and pop places. Like in my area, the only places that are cash only are these like really hole in the wall, greasy spoon breakfast places, right? Or maybe these really mom and pop florists, right? It's seen as somebody who is just very unprofessional or somebody who just doesn't have their stuff together, or it isn't a real business. Now, is that fair? Probably not. But at this day and age, in the digital age, with all of the advancements that are available and all of the ways that we can pay, right? People are now paying with their phone. They can pay online for a service before they even get there. Again, think about all the businesses in person. Now, you might be in a place that's very artisanal or very interesting, but even if I go to a flea market, everyone takes cards. Even if I go to yard sales now, people take cards. I want you to think about that for a second. Even at yard sales and garage sales, people are taking cards. Okay. And I bet it's not a lot of many of these places that take these that don't take cards, right? And again, that's because many businesses are adjusting to the way of the times and have a credit card processor for that convenience. Again, if I go to a garage sale and we're negotiating the price of an item, if I only have cash, right, and I don't want to have to go all the way to the ATM and back, it better be a really good deal for me to go all the way to the ATM and come back, right? Versus if I have a debit card right here, if I have a credit card processor, if I have Square or whatever, and I give you a price for an item and you're like, oh man, that sounds like I like that. I want that. You're just going to pay that. And I only think about how many of you guys carry cash all of the time. I know I don't, and I'm a pretty cash fluid person, but I have my envelope system and I have certain amounts of money set aside. But for the most part, I have my phone with literally guys, I have my phone with a few of my cards right here and it's like built in. And this is my wallet now. This is my wallet if I don't have to bring my purse, and I try not to bring my purse anywhere. I like to stick that in my jeans back pocket and go for a walk and go shopping if I can. The only time I do bring cash is if I do know that place is a cash only business, or if I know that that business, perhaps like if I'm going to tip somewhere where I may or may not be able to elsewhere, but that's a finite amount of money. And if it's more money, well, then I just wouldn't buy there. Or, right, I would need to, again, have this negative experience of going there and they're like, oh no, it's more than you expect. And I'm like, oh, I got to go all the way to the ATM and come back. And especially where the digital age is, banks are less and less close apart. I remember one of my banks used to have, they used to be in like grocery stores and all these places, but they're not anymore, right? Because people don't need ATMs everywhere because we are in the digital age. So by not accepting debit and credit cards, I believe that you are significantly limiting your income potential through tips, protecting yourself against no call, no shows. You are getting yourself potentially a big shining light from the IRS. And I also think that you are, for better or worse, signifying that you are a very mom and pop, unprofessional business. And again, guys, this is my opinion. You never have to take my opinion. You can do whatever you want. If that 2 or 3% to your bottom line is that important to you, then do all cash. But I want you to consider how many no call, no shows that haven't paid, right? Or new clients that didn't show up, and figure out if that would actually pay essentially those credit card fees. And I also, for reference, do not believe that you should charge credit card fees to clients, because as somebody who owns an online business, who could, I mean, I could ask you guys to send me electronic transfers. I could tell you guys, no, it's cash on delivery, right? I don't. I want you to imagine again, if you wanted to buy some of these things and I said, nope, you have to come and meet me and pay me in cash. You'd be like, well, that's ridiculous, right? So just consider that. And I also don't pass along, some of you guys, depending upon where you are in the country, and depending upon a lot of factors, you could be up to 5% of my transaction could be taken from my credit card payments. And I know you guys would not appreciate if I passed along those savings to you. Right? You'd be like, really? She's nickeling and diming us over 2, 3, 5%. Really? She's charging us in order to sell us something? Again, it doesn't feel good. Well, thank you guys so much for watching this episode of Grow Wealthy Grooming. Be sure to check me out at savvygroomer.com to see my current opportunities to work with me, growing your pet grooming business, plus lots of free resources for you to learn. See you guys in my grooming community, Savvy Pet Professionals. And as always, guys, happy grooming.